If I'm being honest, I don't think I've ever finished an army to 100%. There's always been one or two units not quite finished, or I get to the point where I'm about 95% done and I decide to add to the army, or I move on to the next shiny thing. Add to that having a 3D printer, and I seem to blink and there's a new squad sitting on my shelf each week. Before you know it, your cupboard is full of unfinished projects. So enter one per month. The goal here is to try and set some realistic hobby expectations by showing how consistent effort will pretty quickly lead to a finished project. Printing, painting, and at least one unit a month completely finished until the project is done. Hopefully some of you out there might decide to join in and we can turn our piles of shame into something we're proud of. So our first project is going to be the 969th Steel Legion Regiment. For those of you who don't know the Steel Legion, they were a subfaction of the Imperial Guard back in earlier editions. They were one of the main antagonists of the Armageddon Wars campaigns, and I found some really cool SCLs by Tiny Legend that make really good proxies for the originals. The project will recreate a company of the 969th Regiment. I've created a custom force organisation chart and a bit of background for the project. The 969th Steel Legion were cut off in the fire wastes while defending a key manufacturing complex. When the supply lines collapsed, relief never came. They were never ordered to withdraw, so the regiment was forced to adapt or die. With no resupply of men, fuel, or replacement armour, the traditional separation of infantry and armoured companies became untenable. In its place, the 969th reorganised into recombined arms companies, self-sufficient formations where infantry, armour, and support elements fight as a single, interdependent unit. This project follows the actions of the 6th Company, Fox Company, a hardened recombined arms formation that continues to prosecute the war around the Manufactorum ruins long after the wider campaign has moved on. Let's take a look at what we've completed this month. So the main goal of this month was to nail down our basing for the infantry and our method for painting our armoured units. The first thing we finished was this Ministorum Priest. He is kind of the catalyst for the entire project. He's an old metal model from around 3rd edition that was gifted to me. I'm thinking he could be used as a psyker at a pinch. We've gone for a reddy brown base to match the Badlands theme of our company fighting in the fire wastes. And I'm just building up the courage to freehand some text onto his book and parchment here. And once that's finished, he just needs some tufts on his base and I'll call him done. The next and main thing we finished this month was our first Lemon Russ. This was our first tank print, and we used it to lock in our colour scheme. You can see we've gone for the fairly classic tan grey camo scheme of the Steel Legion, and added in some significant battle damage and weathering to tie it back into our lore. The tank itself is an exterminator variant with twin-linked autocannons, multi-melters, and a las cannon. The idea being that I want to be able to get this thing up close and personal while supporting the infantry, but also make my opponent think twice about moving his armour into line of sight. I was really impressed by this 3D model. It printed in a handful of main pieces like the hull, tracks, turret and sponsons, and then had a few alternative models of those parts, and plenty of greeblies like lights to customise your tanks and make them unique. The whole thing was pre-supported and came pre-hollowed. Our company is the remnant of multiple other companies mashed together, so this is going to be really useful, being able to make our tanks look like they were produced and maintained by different companies. We have a rotating turret and sponsons, and all the important bits are magnetised, so we can swap out loadouts on the sponsons and turret as we need. The turret comes off, so the model packs down quite nicely for safe transport. And we've put the hatch on a hinge, so we can add a tank commander later on down the line if we want. The body itself is also really cool. Probably 90% of the assembly for this was just gluing the tracks to the hull. You can see where it's hollowed and the supports are still inside. I wasn't 100% sure on which loadout to go with, so we printed and primed a battle cannon and a vanquisher cannon to give us some options. Now we can pretty much run this as our exterminator, a tank commander, a standard Lemon Russ, or a vanquisher. They still need to be painted, but they are all magnetised to allow us to easily change them out as we need. So when I got to recording this, I noticed I'd forgotten to paint the lens on the spotlight. So 99% finished this month. We've also printed a bunch of these extra secondary weapons to give us all the options we'll ever need. And we've even got a hunter-killer missile and an antenna that we can use to denote our command vehicles. For next month. We're currently having some technical difficulties with the 3D printer, so for next month I've gone and printed a bunch of things while we work on getting that fixed. The first thing we've printed is our first Chimera. The whole idea behind the Steel Legion is that they're mechanized infantry, so each unit is going to need one of these eventually, so we might as well make a start on one now. Ideally, going forward, I would like to print and paint the Chimera with their unit in one go, so we always have a fully mechanized force, but that will depend on how the printer's machine spirit is feeling this month. The model we're using is the Imperial Infantry Fighting Vehicle from an artist called Alpine Vice 3D. Go and check him out on My Manufacturing. Like our Lehman Russ, this came all pre-supported and pre-hollowed, and there are plenty of options for different weapon loadouts and greeblies. Again, the turret comes off and all of these bits are fully magnetized, so we can swap out loadouts as we like. We've gone and printed a multi-laser because they just look iconic, and a heavy bolter. For the hull, we've printed out both heavy flamer and heavy bolter. We've also added the track guards as extra protection, to maybe denote this as the transport of a command squad or elite. We've also done some test prints of our infantry, and a primary goal next month is to finalise their paint scheme. The models we've chosen are from Tiny Legends, and these test prints are from his trench infantry range, just to get a feel for their quality. Overall, I'm more than happy with the models, and I've signed up to his Patreon to get access to the Blitz Legion we'll be using. As you can see, we've done a test print of those here so we can practice our colour scheme. I think the MP40 style las gun is a cool idea, and I might use those for shotguns or something, but I much prefer his carbine las guns for normal infantry. Also, we'll be using the gas mask heads in true Steel Legion fashion. Last but not least, we needed someone to lead our troops. I found this cool commissar model on Cults 3D, which may look familiar to some of you old timers out there. Like a younger version of a maybe dead, maybe not named character from previous wars on Armageddon. There's also a version of this with his iconic power claw, which I will print at some point. I'll probably save these for a palette cleanser when I'm sick of painting tanks and regular infantry. So what do you think of the 969th so far? What do you think we should focus on in the upcoming months? Is there anything in particular you would like to see? Maybe you want to know more about 3D printing, or how I've painted a particular unit, or you want to know more about the lore behind our project. Just drop a comment down below and I'll try and respond or include it in an upcoming video. But for now, that's all for this month. Until next month.